Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here with you this lovely Monday morning by myself in the 5, maybe even almost 6 years of Weekly Energy Boost. I have never been by myself for an episode, and there were different series of events that took place that made it sort of obvious and at the same time the best way to share with you the opportunities and the challenges of this week is to lock myself in a room and spend some time with you by myself. So here I am, and we are in the midst of a very special week on the Kabbalistic calendar, and I am especially moved by today's topic, which is happily ever after. We've had episodes about happiness before, and hopefully today we'll touch on some deeper teachings and practical tools that will help us all raise our collective and individual vibration to a more joyful state, as well as looking into, the weekend. There's just all these beautiful opportunities, and every week on the Weekly Energy Boost, we aim to provide our listeners with the most practical and powerful tools available that we know of, at least, to help our listeners navigate the coming 7 days. We search through the wisdom of Kabbalah to find that wisdom and those tools. And inevitably, every episode provides our listeners with the timeless wisdom and the timeless tools you can really utilize at any time. And the reason that this is the topic is because right now we're in a week on the Kabbalistic calendar called Sukkot. And traditionally, if you know anything about the traditional explanation about it, it's again about commemorating something that happened thousands of years ago. According to Kabbalah, we know that all of the things that we commemorate, those moments, those epic scenes in history, are actually, when we tap into those same windows in time in which those historical moments happened, we access the same energy that allowed those things to happen. And the Kabbalists teach that we are downloading in this week, whether we're aware of it or not, whether we understand it or not, we are downloading our ceiling for happiness for the coming year. And I think for most of us, we think of happiness as circumstantial, right? And I think that even the traditional definition of happiness is the result of something that happens, whereas joy is something that you can cultivate and practice. And we will talk about that. But according to the wisdom of Kabbalah, happiness is a gift. It's something that we can consciously choose to reveal in any situation. So even though it's situational, it has a different frequency or vibration than joy, which is really a practice. Happiness is something that we can consciously awaken. And this is the week that we fill our reservoir with that ability, that capacity to experience happiness. And there's a part of me that says, I think in a way society sets us up for misery. I mean, I don't have to get into, obviously, I'm in the US, where the media, and I don't just mean news outlets, I mean marketing, advertising, it's really all built around you're not sexy enough, you're not skinny enough, your skin isn't glowy enough, you don't have thick enough hair, you don't have enough money, your lawn isn't green enough. That's how things get sold. Like, right, I need a greener lawn, or I need a bigger house, or I don't have enough. And the work of the wisdom of Kabbalah, and I want to share this in a bigger picture context as well, because one of the things we do every year in this time is we revamp our studies. We seek ways to shake it up, and we're offering courses, level 1 courses, all over the world in every language in the coming weeks. And I want to share that information with you before today's episode is over. But the actual study of Kabbalah, the wisdom of Kabbalah, is really studying the thoughts of the Creator, studying the structure of the universe, which then informs us on how to formulate our own consciousness, our own mindset, and how to shift our perspectives so that we are working with the universe instead of against it. And that's one of the main premises for this podcast, not just today, but the existence of Weekly Energy Boost, is to bring to our attention what the universe is supporting us to do and what the universe is immunizing us from. And one of the things that the Kabbalists teach about this week is that this is the week you want to be happy for no reason. And the truth is, I find it easier to think about the reasons I have to be happy rather than happiness for no reason, but to consider the aspects of our life that maybe we take for granted, maybe are so much part of our routine or the framework of our lives that we don't even think about it. This concept makes me go to, the relationships that we have that we know we can depend on. My teacher, Karen Berg, always used to talk about, people go out into nature and they're so wowed by nature, but are they wowed over the fact that they have the senses and the faculties to take nature in and to appreciate nature, right? Thinking about all the small things and cultivating a genuine appreciation for those blessings, right? Even when, I've shared this in episodes before, but once someone went to our teacher, Rav Berg, and said, Rav, I had this amazing miracle. I was in a car accident and walked away without a scratch. And the Rav answered, I had an even bigger miracle. I wasn't in a car accident today. And the realization that we are so much more blessed than we could ever articulate, even fathom, and to practice. And this is where I think the idea we've been talking about these last few weeks about raising our frequency and our vibration and tapping into that natural, free-flowing light and wisdom that exists inside of each one of us. Joy and gratitude are something that are not reflexive. We're not naturally in a state of gratitude. And the Kabbalists explain why. It's not simply accepted, it's human nature. We were created as vessels, as containers for the light force of the Creator. So it's very easy to look at a cup, right? They say, are you a glass half empty or a glass half full person? Most people are glass half empty. It's easier to focus on what isn't than what is. And so the Kabbalists teach, and again, we may have spoken about this in different ways before, but the first thing we do every morning when we wake up, eyes open, we express gratitude for our soul having come back into our body and for the ability to continue to have the opportunity to do our soul's work for another day. And regardless of whether, I don't know, I think I shared with some of you, I was pretty sick last week. And you have those moments where your body tells you can't do all the things you want to do and you can't go all the places you need to go. Your thoughts slow down and it's very easy to go into a victim place. But once I surrendered to the fact that my body wasn't going to let me do all the things I needed to do, I was able to step into that almost like slow motion experience of my life and to watch all the moving parts and people. And even, I had to cancel all of my meetings. I couldn't do classes. And it was so interesting because I really wanted to teach. And the fact that I didn't have a voice, or that even if I could put a sentence together, I would probably burst into a coughing fit right afterwards. Like, how amazing that I have this group of, a few hundred people that are there for me every week. Luckily we had the podcast ready, so I didn't have to miss out on that. But just the slowing things down, and this is something that I invite everybody to do this week, is to really step slowly, walk through life this week in slow motion, and notice everything, all of the small things, all of the tiny gestures. And even, it's a bit personal, but I had a phone call yesterday from my kids' school, which is often a source of opportunities to be proactive and to exercise my spiritual muscles. And my natural response to what they shared with me was shame, humiliation. I felt terrible for 25 seconds maybe. And then I thought to myself, wow, how much the universe, how much the Creator must love me to give me the opportunity to be appreciative that there are people looking out for my kids and paying enough attention to bring this to my attention. I can choose to make it about, it's such a terrible parent, or I can be grateful that I got such a merciful message, right? It wasn't like, the police showed up at my door. It was a concerned teacher reached out about something, and now I get to work on it. And if I had let my monkey mind, my reactive brain, speed train through that scenario, I would have been rolling around in guilt and shame and just feeling terrible about myself. And it's that prescription from the Kabbalists that I appreciate so much, because if we allow the knee-jerk speed train mind to just full speed ahead, we miss those moments. And for those moments, I am grateful. And I am grateful for the ability, and join me in being grateful for the reminder that everything is for our highest good. And that's one of the things we bring into a concrete practice when we study, when we teach Kabbalah 1, is how do you train yourself to be conscious and to remember that everything in my life is part of a perfect plan to extract the greatest version of me from myself. That I am here to shine the light of my soul. And yes, a teacher calling me to point out something that I could take as humiliating or shameful, it's actually a gift from the light. And to be grateful for the messenger and the message and the delivery system, the machine that sends those messages, sometimes in really ugly packages, prickly packages, and sometimes in really graceful ones. But both messengers originate from the same messenger system. So in terms of being able to operate from that place on a regular basis, the Kabbalists tell us this is the week to adopt those practices, to slow down enough to insert dedicated time in your day, not just when you wake up and then speed train can leave the station, but to pause periodically throughout the day and collect the beauty and the blessing in your life. Because, as we've been saying week after week, I think it's been the theme of the month of Virgo and even the month of Libra, what you look for is what you'll find. You will see more blessings if you're looking for those blessings. Like attracts like. So when you feel fortunate, you attract fortune. And I'm not talking about luck. Good fortune feeling fortunate is a magnet for good fortune. All of those coincidences and serendipitous moments, they like to congregate. And so the more that we raise ourselves to that vibration of gratitude, the more joyful we are in life, and the more things to feel fortunate for will come to us. And that's why I think there's certain people that have this attitude of gratitude. And I remember as a child, my mom being like that, and me like rolling my eyes so far in the back of my head whenever I heard her talking to people or just speaking like in that sort of gushy, appreciative way for somebody, the person who, remember the days when people helped you to your car with your groceries? So my mom would just bless that person and shower them with so much love. And I'd be like, Mom, you're embarrassing me. All he did was walk to the car. But that attitude of gratitude really does create a string of things to be grateful for. And I know this is a bit cheesy. I'm sure if David or anybody else were here with me, they wouldn't let me continue in this vein. But that's one of the reasons I wanted to take advantage of this, because it really does deserve that cheesiness. You know, I think all of us really do desire a life that we are genuinely grateful for and happy and appreciative of. And I think it's the stories that we make up about our life or the way things are that prevent us from experiencing that joy and happiness. The stories that we tell ourselves. I met with somebody yesterday who was talking about, this is the way that she was brought up, so therefore she thinks this in this way. Even though our childhoods do leave those indelible marks on us, and they are indelible, by the way, we have to remember that our soul chose that setup so that we would have the blockages, quote unquote, to work through and to be mindful. I mean, that's something even I'm grateful for, that I had, I know many times the things I share about my upbringing sound pretty rose-colored. The different issues and sort of belief systems that I was programmed with growing up as a child are really perfect for me in terms of breaking through to reveal my own greatness and my own potential. And the more I work on it, the more joy and fulfillment I feel. Now, being joyful or being grateful doesn't mean that we're happy all the time. I don't want to sound like I'm Pollyanna or anything like that. Life can be hard, but we can also do hard things, right? We can also, with that inspired spirit, go through the things that are difficult. I'm working on a project with some, not Kabbalah Centre related, and there was a question that came up that was, what's the hardest thing you had to go through in your life so far? And that really gave me pause, and I thought, wow, what is the hardest thing I've been through in my life? And how did I navigate it through it? And I have to say that it really was a combination of the knowledge that I have, that despite how hard this is or challenging it can be, or I might not feel like getting out of bed in the morning, or it may seem like, there's no light at the end of the tunnel for right now, I know that the Creator is behind it. I know that it's for not only my ultimate good, but the collective ultimate good. And really, I call it polishing my consciousness. So when I have the doubts and the fears that come up, the limiting beliefs, I think of it as like, oh, there's a smudge on my consciousness and I just have to polish it. Where does it come from? Why do I believe that? Who told me that story? Again, a lot of times it comes up with things relating to parenting, that there is, in a way, a lot of self-worth that's tied up in performance, whether it's performing as a parent, as an employee, as a partner, doesn't matter. But those stories that if things aren't perfect, it's a reflection on me. Well, that's not, who told me that story? Where did I learn that? And polishing my consciousness until I'm able to tell myself a different story. And once the story is, I'm a great parent and I make mistakes, but I can do hard things and we're going to get through this. That's another way to take the frequency and the vibration up into a place of gratitude and joy. It's hard, but I can still be joyful and feel good through the hard things. I can still be kind and thoughtful, even though I'm going through a hard thing. And thinking about, the year to come, and the month of Libra, as we've been sharing, is all about setting ourselves up for a month, right? This month is about setting us up for a whole year that is blessed and protected, and in which we are completely a different person than we were in, last year, the year before that. And at the same time, we want to be mindful of the things that prevent us or that interrupt our experiences of joy and gratitude. And be mindful. Like I said, that phone call I got from school, the phone call is not the trigger. The feelings of shame and inadequacy are the trigger. And the more aware, and that's another part of the Kabbalah One journey, is the more we are aware of those patterns and triggers that interrupt that feeling of connection and light, the better we can plan our route to either plow through it, avoid it. Of course, that's the nature, is to avoid those feelings, but really to also dismantle that story, right? Who said, because my kid needs this and this and that, I'm a bad parent? Who told me that story? And again, going back and fact checking, right? There's fact checking on the internet. How come there's no fact checking in our mind? And how many of the stories that we tell ourselves are not factual, right? Are simply a matter of perspective, shifting perspective. One thing that's really beautiful that I've been studying over since the month of Virgo began, actually, is the study of the 10 luminous emanations. We shared a few weeks ago, we have a new book called, I can't think of what the book is called. Anyway, you can go to weeklyenergyboost.com. It's up there on the homepage. Something of consciousness. I can't remember. I can see the cover of the book and I can't remember it. But that study, one of the first concepts that you learn when you engage in that study is the fact that from the point of view of the universe, from the light creator, again, feel free to use the terminology that makes you feel most connected, there's no change. We are the ones who create or imagine change. What does that mean? The sun always shines, right? The sun doesn't turn off. It doesn't take a vacation. It doesn't take a break. We simply change our proximity, experience of it, and therefore we experience cold or darkness, but we are the ones who are imagining or creating the change. From the point of view of the sun is the same day in and day out forever. So the same applies to the creator. The creator's light radiates, shines, fills all of existence. We're the ones who block it out, shield ourselves from it, don't see it, let something stand in the way between us and that light. And so, the main things that I find working with individuals that prevent us from experiencing that are fear. Maybe that's the obvious one. That fear, worry, anxiety, whatever, again, pick the word or the version of that emotion that resonates with you. That perception of things are going to get worse, things are not in my control, what's going to happen when, even a lot of us go through life, even when good things happen, thinking it's too good to be true, right? That is what I would call an umbrella that we put up between us and the light force of the creator. When we operate out of fear, out of lack, out of worry, out of anxiety, we literally put up a shade between us and that light and that feeling good or feeling connected. The light hasn't turned off. There isn't actual darkness, but by focusing on outcomes we don't want, we put ourselves in the dark. Another one that comes up for a lot of people is scarcity, feeling not enough, operating from a place of, I don't matter, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I don't belong. I call that a lack as well, but what ends up happening is that when we're feeling not enough or that we don't matter, we can do things that hurt ourselves, that hurt others, and we can also enter a state of inaction that prevents us from kindness, sharing, goodness. I know that for a long time I struggled with this, thinking, I'm not going to say the kind word, the happy birthday, the, compliment, because what does my opinion matter? And it took me a long time to realize that the reason I don't say those wonderful things to people enough is because my perception is my opinion doesn't really count. So what difference does it make if I share it? Took a lot of polishing. There was a lot of polishing of consciousness till I came down to that tiny kernel. I don't know how it got there. I'm glad that it's gone now. But the reality is a lot of us sit in the dark because of that kernel. I don't matter. Why bother? No one's going to notice. I don't count. I'm not enough. And that broken record, if you will, takes our vibration, our resonance down so low that then, of course, it is hard to see the things to be grateful for, the things that are good in our lives, the blessings, the protection, the gifts. And then I think maybe deserving its own category is the whole, it's funny, it goes back to the media thing I said in the beginning, it's the fitting in. And I think that there's something that starts when we're very young about wanting to belong, wanting to be like everybody else, not wanting to stand out. I guess I need to dig a little bit more around that because I don't know where it comes from. I find it's not one of my go-to issues, but that doesn't mean it isn't worthy of research. But the trying to be what other people need rather than to be our genuine self, what ends up happening is that every time we morph into the cool kid or the quiet kid or whoever we think we need to be. And I don't mean kid, right? Obviously, we as adults do this. We have personas when we walk into the office. We have another persona at home. We have another persona. We've talked about this many times on Weekly Energy Boost. The reality is that we're cloaking ourselves. We're literally taking layers and cloaking our light so that, again, the perspective of gratitude, appreciation, joy, and then being able to enjoy. I don't know if anybody, I looked at the word enjoy, and then I thought to myself, wow, to enjoy something is to experience joy with it. And I don't know why I never thought about that. I'm pretty big on etymology and word sources and things like that. And I realized that the things that bring us joy are the things that we enjoy. And doing more of those things, assuming they're not harmful in the long term, that they're not damaging in any way to ourselves or other people, it's okay for you to enjoy. And to hide the things that we enjoy, to not be those things or to not allow those parts of us to shine. I think it was Daniel Naor who was on Weekly Energy Boost a few months ago already at this point. And he talked about, if he has a gift, he should use it, whether it's productive or, makes money or adds value to other people's life. If you enjoy it, why aren't you doing it? And it sparked a beautiful conversation between he and I. After the episode, hopefully it gave you food for thought as well. I think the final thing, I don't want to harp on too much because I know we touched on it a little bit last week as well, is that one of the things that dampens or hampers, if the right word, the joy that we experience in our daily lives is stress. And I feel that it would be valuable to throw in the explanation, the origins of stress according to Kabbalah, because I do feel that knowing it and practicing the antidote for it, the Kabbalistic antidote for it, allows us to live more joyfully as well. And I know we've talked about this before. We probably can't talk about it enough simply because stress and anxiety and pressure, it's just so prevalent in society these days, is that whenever we feel stress or pressure, Kabbalistically speaking, it means that it's a point in our journey where we're able to grow. We may have even asked for growth and expansion. And as we see that growth and that expansion coming to us, right, this is slowing down the film really slowly, the immediate response is, I can't handle it. Now, the Kabbalists explain that growth and expansion means more fulfillment, more light, more joy, more everything, right? You may have been praying or meditating for your soulmate, and the universe looks at you and says, you want your soulmate, you need to expand yourself more. You need to reveal more light. Soulmate is a big responsibility. Let's stretch you. And then when the stretch comes, you say, I can't handle it. In Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic word for that is surrounding light. It's like the pressure that comes to get you to rise to your next level. And when we say we can't handle it, what are we really saying? Can't handle the soulmate, can't handle the promotion, can't handle greater clarity and intuition and peace of mind. So we have this push and pull. I want, but I can't handle. And the Kabbalists say, remind yourself when that happens, I can handle this. I asked for it, right? This is a gift to me. And many times just the simple act of welcoming and embracing the surrounding light diminishes the illusion of pressure. And then suddenly you realize you can and you will. So as you feel your breath speeding up and your heart starting to race and those feelings of, I can't take this, I can't handle it, it's too much, take a breath and remind yourself, I can handle it. I welcome my surrounding light. And watch how, again, it's not even a sudden thing. You shift into, think about the embrace, that idea of welcoming or allowing. You're ushering in with ease your next level rather than kicking and screaming toward it. And I'm going to share with you quickly the metaphor that Rav Berg uses. I think it's in the book, The Power of You. The Rav says, imagine that you have a factory and you produce whatever you produce, and your foreman comes to you and says, listen, boss, we have a bunch of orders we can't fulfill. We need a bigger machine. So you order the bigger machine, the machine comes, and the foreman says to you, hey, boss, bad news, the floor isn't strong enough to handle the weight of the new machine. So you ask the foreman, what do you suggest we do? And he tells you, well, we either need to reinforce the floor or send back the machine and refuse the new orders. So the question there is, do you want to increase production, which is increasing in revenue and supporting your employees and all that stuff? Or do you want to go back to playing it small? You have to reinforce the floor. Reinforcing the floor might mean polishing your consciousness, strengthening your certainty, being more open-minded, generous, kind, compassionate, accepting, whatever it is. But remind yourself when the stress hits, you want to embrace it and welcome it, and you can handle it. And I think if we can all embody those shifts, again, think about it. You're polishing your consciousness. You're looking for the blessings. You're looking for the good. You're cultivating that attitude of gratitude, and you're welcoming the pressure and the stress. That's really, Kabbalistically, this weekend is all about creating a greater capacity for surrounding light. What we're doing this weekend energetically is from Saturday and Sunday is we are, imagine, if you're operating right now at a 5 and you're thinking, I could lean towards 7 or 8. This weekend, you have the opportunity to lean into a 9 or a 10, that this year, your capacity will grow exponentially and not just incrementally. So hopefully with what we shared today, you can use some of that to upgrade not only your experience of joy and fulfillment, but also your capacity to handle the tough moments as well. 2 things I wanted to share with you, as I promised before. Over the next 2 weeks, we have, actually into the 3rd week of October, if I'm not mistaken, we are opening Kabbalah Ones in person and online at every center and in every language that we offer classes. So we're going to put a link in the show notes, as well as on weeklyenergyboost.com, so that you can see your options, what works for you in your time zone, your language. If you can be there in person, awesome. But we have more options for streaming even than we do in person. We're not limited by time and space when we're online. And the other thing I want to throw out there, I know I talked a bit about parenting and maybe we're due for a bigger parenting conversation, is that we also offer Kabbalistic parenting guidance sessions now. I'll also put the link in the show notes, as well as on weeklyenergyboost.com. But if you're looking to infuse consciousness, wisdom, spiritual practice into your parenting, you can work one-on-one with one of our teachers as well to that aim. And we're always trying to think of more things, more ways to support our students and our listeners. So we're thinking of you. Thank you for being here with me and listening to the solo violin concerto I shared with you today. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Please go to weeklyenergyboost.com and read about all the things that I've been talking about, that we've been sharing in these last few weeks. Next week, we have Kabbalistic astrologer Miriam Ashkenazi on the episode with us to talk about the new moon of Scorpio and the eclipses, and in general, what are eclipses all about spiritually and how to use them. Have a fabulous one, everyone, and we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.